A lot of people thought I was crazy to go from a motion picture career, which was just budding, but it was starting to happen before I ever signed on Cheers.
Cheers made millions laugh, but behind the bar stools and beer taps, not everything was smooth. Some actors left with a bang, others vanished with barely a goodbye. Why, was it ego, burnout, behind-the-scenes drama, or something no one saw coming?
But anyway, you know, Cheers it was one of those magical, lucky things for all of us.
From surprise exits to silent send-offs, this list of 10 departures will make you see Cheers in a whole new light. One actor even got written off in a way that left fans stunned and laughing. The real reasons? They're not what you'd expect.
Were there ever moments when you regretted that decision at all?
No, I've never regretted the decision. I've been annoyed by the comments.
Ready to find out what really happened behind the scenes? Nicholas Colasanto, Coach Ernie Pantuso. If Cheers had a soul in its early years, it was Coach. Portrayed by Nicholas Colasanto, Ernie Coach Pantuso wasn't just a bartender. He was the heart of the bar. A former baseball coach with a head full of odd wisdom and a heart too big to fit behind the counter, Coach brought warmth, sincerity, and a kind of innocent comedy that grounded the show. His mix of cluelessness and compassion made him beloved by both the characters and the audience. Ted Danson, who played Sam Malone, once said that Colasanto was the heart of the show, and it wasn't hard to see why. His timing was impeccable, his delivery was heartfelt, and his chemistry with the rest of the cast was undeniable. But behind the scenes, Nicholas Colasanto was fighting a silent battle. Years of heavy drinking had left him with serious heart problems. Although he had been sober since 1976, the damage to his health was irreversible. During the third season of Cheers, his condition visibly worsened. He lost weight, became increasingly fatigued, and began struggling to remember his lines. Still, the cast and crew rallied behind him. They hid cue cards around the set to help him get through scenes, shortened his dialogue, and did everything they could to keep him working. Nobody wanted to say goodbye. Not yet. Yet Colasanto's health kept getting worse. By the end of 1984, he had been hospitalized for fluid in his lungs. The doctors suggested he should stop working altogether, but he continued to keep most of his battles private. The very last episode in which he performed in its entirety was titled Cheerio Cheers. However, his final scene was just a brief moment in Rescue Me. Nicholas Colasanto died of a heart attack on February 12, 1985, at the age of 61. The cast was devastated. That night's taping was canceled, and hundreds of people attended his memorial. It was not just about losing a colleague. It was about losing a man who made Cheers feel like home. The show paid homage in the most touching ways. In Season 4, they introduced Coach's death. Every possible way to show how he mattered was duly acknowledged. Later, in the Cheers finale, Sam walks over to a photo of Coach hanging above the bar, a picture that had belonged to Colasanto himself, and gently straightens it. No words, just a simple gesture. It was quiet, honest, and heartbreakingly perfect, just like Coach. In that single instant, Cheers reminded everyone that while some characters make us laugh, a rare few leave an imprint on our hearts. That loss was heavy, but the next change brought a whole new vibe. Kirstie Alley, Rebecca Howe. When Shelley Long left Cheers in 1987, many feared it would mark the end of the series. Diane Chambers had been the show's emotional and comedic core for 5 seasons. But into the spotlight stepped Kirstie Alley, and suddenly, Cheers found itself reborn. Cast as Rebecca Howe, a polished, career-driven manager sent by the corporate office, Alley offered a different dynamic entirely. At first, Rebecca was written as strong and commanding, the polar opposite of Diane's bookish, idealistic charm. But something unexpected happened. The writers discovered Alley's flair for physical comedy and emotional vulnerability, and Rebecca slowly evolved into a neurotic, love-struck, and deeply funny character. A change that made her not only relatable, but irresistible to audiences. Rebecca's arc couldn't have been more different from Diane's. While Diane challenged Sam Malone on an intellectual level, Rebecca rejected his advances outright. Their dynamic introduced a whole new brand of comedy: awkwardness, desperation, and corporate absurdity. And yet, through it all, Alley made Rebecca her own. Her obsession with dating rich men became a running gag, culminating in a moment where she nearly married a ventriloquist's dummy, convinced the puppeteer was proposing. Unlike Diane, who always hovered at the edge of the bar's culture, Rebecca became part of the gang, diving into their schemes and banter. The shift allowed the show to broaden its focus, turning ensemble players like Woody, Carla, Cliff, and Frasier into scene stealers. With immediate and award-winning impact, Alley concluded her memorable stint on Cheers, having walked away with an Emmy in 1991 and raising the creative bar of the series. During her watch, this show became America's #1 program, despite many doomsayers who swore it couldn't do well without Shelley Long. Because Rebecca came on board, the writers created new ground with tales of boardroom romances and farcical relationships, while the other trajectory of Sam Malone's character matured in response. Although the Sam and Diane story had all the emotional bells and whistles, the Sam and Rebecca tale was more almost tragicomic. Two people traumatized by their imperfections, failing ever so miserably on the business and love life fronts. After Cheers ended in 1993, Kirstie Alley did not appear in spin-offs like Frasier, as she felt that Rebecca's story had been told. Instead, she pursued a career in film, appearing in hits such as Look Who's Talking before landing her own series in Veronica's Closet. Although she experienced greater success after Cheers, fandom memories kept drifting back to the character who was the savior of a sitcom. Rebecca Howe did not just replace Diane Chambers, she redefined what Cheers would be. With her weird charm and fearless comedy, Kirstie Alley made sure that the bar stayed open long past the time when the skeptics had left. Woody Harrelson, Woody Boyd. When Cheers lost Nicholas Colasanto in 1985, fans mourned the death of both the actor and his beloved character, Coach. Filling that void would be no small task. Enter Woody Harrelson, a young and relatively unknown actor who would turn a role born out of grief into one of the show's most endearing and iconic characters. As Woody Boyd, the wide-eyed farm boy from Hanover, Indiana, Harrelson brought a fresh innocence to the bar. His debut in the episode Birth, Death, Love, and Rice was perfectly pitched. He arrived looking for Coach, whom he mistakenly thought had been his pen pal. In reality, they'd only exchanged pens. It was quirky, heartfelt, and hilariously fitting. Woody Boyd was simple, sincere, and utterly lovable. Where Coach had been forgetful and wise, Woody was literal and eager, a golden retriever in human form. His misinterpretations became running jokes. When asked for a screaming Viking, he went looking for an actual Viking. But behind the slapstick charm, there was a tenderness that made Woody stand out. He wasn't just comic relief. He became family. Over time, the writers gave him more depth, showing his struggle to adapt to city life, and eventually giving him a love interest and even a political storyline. Harrelson's portrayal won over audiences and critics alike, earning him 5 Emmy nominations and 1 win in 1989. The arrival of Woody somehow gave Cheers the rejuvenation it needed in later seasons. The early years were concerned heavily with Sam and Diane's romance, but Woody left much room for ensemble work. He fit seamlessly into the scene with characters like Carla and Norm, changing the rhythm of the show's repartee. Yet, as Woody grew in prominence, he never clashed with the rest of the cast. He was in harmony with the system. Harrelson came into an adored series during a very precarious time, and instead of filling Coach's shoes, he reformed them entirely. By the end of Cheers in 1993, Woody Boyd was every bit as integral to the bar's identity as any other character. Woody Harrelson did not just leave Cheers, he blasted off. While on the show, he did his first major film, the surprise hit White Men Can't Jump, 1992. Then came Natural Born Killers, The People vs. Larry Flint, an Oscar nomination, and an unflinching series of drama and comedy performances. Somehow, unlike many sitcom stars, Harrelson totally escaped being typecast. He added more Oscar nominations to his resume and became part of blockbusters like The Hunger Games and Planet of the Apes. Bebe Neuwirth, Lilith Sternin. In the bustling world of Cheers, where wisecracks flew faster than drinks, few characters could command a room with absolute stillness. But that was Lilith Sternin. Played with icy brilliance by Bebe Neuwirth, Lilith was introduced as a no-nonsense behavioral psychologist, a sharp contrast to the chaos of the bar, and a perfect match for Kelsey Grammer's Frasier Crane. What started as a guest role quickly evolved into something much more. Lilith's deadpan delivery, razor-sharp intellect, and underlying vulnerability made her a fan favorite. She didn't need to shout to be funny. Her silence did the work for her. In a sea of exaggerated personalities, she was uniquely grounded. Bebe Neuwirth brought Lilith to life with a precision few actors could match. Her chemistry with Kelsey Grammer was undeniable, and together they created one of TV's most unexpected and strangely compelling couples. Though Lilith was never a main cast member, her appearances were always impactful. Whether she was clinically dissecting Sam Malone's womanizing behavior or quietly unraveling in the face of marital tension, Lilith added emotional complexity to the show. She was more than a caricature of the cold intellectual. She was layered, sometimes painfully honest, and quietly hilarious. And it was Neuwirth's theater-honed instincts that gave Lilith that kind of richness. While she enjoyed playing Lilith, it was never intended that Bebe Neuwirth would remain with Cheers full-time. Her first love was the stage, mainly Broadway, to which she often returned between movie gigs. Although Frasier was green-lighted as a spin-off in 1993, Bebe decided consciously against being a permanent member of the new show. Instead, Neuwirth accepted several very memorable guest spots, some of the most heartbreaking episodes, and preferred the flexibility of recurring roles over a weekly commitment. For her, Lilith was a great chapter, but the net response was one. Nevertheless, she left behind a long-lasting impact. In an arena where women were oftentimes shoved into roles as love interests or comic reliefs, Lilith was both, and yet she was none. She was unique. Her deadpan lines became popular quotable ones. Her calm composure made the uproariously funny scenes that much more hysterical alongside Frasier. And her exit had no drama, no goodbyes, no tragedy. Just a quiet withdrawal of a character who had always known when to speak and when to walk away. For many fans, Bebe Neuwirth did not just play Lilith Sternin, she defined her. Even with sporadic appearances, she left her distinct and unforgettable mark on one of TV's most iconic casts. Kelsey Grammer, Frasier Crane. When Kelsey Grammer first walked onto the Cheers set in 1984, few imagined he'd become one of the longest-running and most iconic characters in TV history. Frasier Crane was originally written as a short-term role, a rebound for Diane Chambers after her breakup with Sam. But something unexpected happened. Grammer's portrayal of the uptight, erudite psychiatrist struck a chord with viewers. His dry wit, highbrow vocabulary, and intellectual arrogance made him an instant comedic foil, not just for Diane, but for the entire bar. Within a few episodes, Frasier became indispensable. He wasn't just Diane's new boyfriend, he was a new kind of funny. Behind the scenes, Frasier's rise wasn't without friction. Shelley Long reportedly clashed with Grammer, with co-star Kelsey later alleging in his memoir that she tried to have his jokes cut. Long denied the accusation, calling it a misunderstanding, but the tension added a layer of drama to an already shifting cast dynamic. Regardless, Grammer stayed the course, even after Long exited in Season 5. Rather than fade away as a temporary love interest, Frasier evolved into a fully integrated member of the ensemble. The writers gave him his own quirks, relationships, and neuroses. Over time, he stopped being Diane's boyfriend and became Frasier, period. And when Cheers faded from view in 1993, almost all of its characters left the scene to find their future off stage. But not Frasier. NBC risked the gamble of handing Grammer his own series. Frasier, located in Seattle, dealing with the psychiatrist's life after the bar. What could have proved a short-lived curiosity grew into a juggernaut of culture. Frasier garnered 11 seasons and swept 5 Emmys as Outstanding Comedy Series in succession, contributing significantly to Grammer's reputation as one of the most honored actors in television. Not only was this a continuation, but it also involved a reinvention. Family relationships and personal failures were treated with amazing emotional depth in equal measure as the razor-sharp humor that made Frasier the standout in Cheers. The fact remains that Kelsey Grammer survived being a member of the cast for the longest-running sitcom in America to transcend it. Instead, he soared beyond the level that most others achieved as cast members striving for roles in keeping with their sitcom fame without much success. His recognized voice, once thin-voiced, became that of the main television voice after the minor character from a Boston bar became a legend in TV folklore. Throughout all of that, Kelsey Grammer added consistency, intelligence, and a bit of posh craziness to his character Frasier Crane, whether he was debating wine pairings as most people would expect, or slowly unraveling in his radio booth. Some just can't stand to lose certain characters. In some respects, Cheers grew out of Frasier, but Cheers was his genesis. It never left Kelsey Grammer's mind. Paul Willson, Paul Krapens. In the Cheers universe, not every character needed a dramatic entrance or a heartfelt exit to make an impact. Some, like Paul Krapens, simply were. Played by Paul Willson, Paul was the quiet barfly who could often be seen sitting at the edge of the crowd, close enough to the action to get a laugh, but far enough to remain a mystery. He didn't have long speeches or love stories. He didn't trade zingers with Sam Malone or offer profound life advice like Coach. But when he did speak, you listened, and more often than not, you laughed. Paul wasn't always Paul. In fact, during his earliest appearance on the show, the character was briefly referred to as Greg. It was a blink and you will miss it moment, but as the series went on, the producers saw something in Wilson's dry delivery and natural awkwardness. They brought him back and gave him a name, and over time, Paul became a recurring figure in the bar's lineup. He didn't get involved in big storylines, but he was there through most of the show's 11 seasons, often chiming in with a single line that somehow stole the scene. It was Paul Krapence's genius that lay in the subtleties. While Norm and Cliff could be rowdy and full of opinions, Paul was quieter, somewhat more socially awkward. Even with an array of colorful personalities, he was simply an everyman in that giant, crazy world. He fit in less, but still came, and it made him lovable. Fans appreciated how Cheers included people like Paul, not just as minor characters, but as part of the bar's soul. It reflected real-life bar stools aren't always occupied by the loudest. Sometimes there are listeners, nodders, and the person who'll rattle off the best one when no one is expecting it. Paul Willson had no dramatic exit from Cheers because he never really left. His character was never written off, ever recast, or included in any behind-the-scenes drama. He simply showed up when needed, like clockwork, in the texture of the world of Cheers without taking up space. That was the magic of it. In a show that provided outlets to some of the world's biggest stars, spinning into gilt-edged TV empires, Paul Krapence found himself destined precisely where he began. He may not have been top billing, but in the hearts of long-term fans, Paul always was part of the gang. Harry Anderson, Harry the Hat Gittes. Every bar has a wild card, that one guy you're not quite sure is for real. At Cheers, that man was Harry the Hat Gittes. Played by Harry Anderson, Harry was a slick-talking con artist with a love for trickery and an eye for easy marks. He'd stroll into the bar with a grin, a hat tipped just right, and before you knew it, someone was missing their wallet or a $5 bill. But you couldn't stay mad at him. Harry was too charming, too clever, and frankly, too much fun to watch. His appearances were rare, but unforgettable. Each one a little masterclass in mischief. Harry Anderson wasn't just acting, he was Harry the Hat. His tricks weren't camera gags, they were the real deal, performed live and woven seamlessly into the storylines. The Cheers writers knew they had something special, and although he only appeared in 6 episodes between 1982 and 1985, Harry quickly became a fan favorite. He wasn't a regular, but when he showed up, viewers knew they were in for something different. Harry's tenure on Cheers was meant to be a temporary one despite his expressed popularity. In the meantime, Anderson was receiving offers, and NBC starring him in Night Court, an eccentric courtroom comedy setup where he played the judge Harry Stone, a character that easily blended warmth and wit, and a magician's flair, similar to Gittes. The rest is history. Night Court ran for 9 seasons and earned Anderson 3 Emmy nominations. Saying adieu to the bar, Harry took along the lovable trickster in persona, polished, repackaged, and sold weekly to millions. From that moment, however, Harry never said goodbye to Cheers. Anderson came back for one last con during the last season of the series, an episode in season 11 that brought back the Hat to the bar one final time. It was a wistful serenade to the days when Cheers was new and still finding its footing. It was a tip of the brim back to when Harry was giving it a good shake. He came back not to ooze too grandly upon the stage, but to make the audience reevaluate just how rich the world of Cheers had become. Harry, the Hat Gittes, might not have been there on the bar stool every week, but whenever he was, he left the audience buzzing. J. Thomas, Eddie LeBec. In the world of Cheers, romance often came with a twist, but none quite like Eddie LeBec. Played by J. Thomas, Eddie was a quirky addition to the bar's lineup, a Boston Bruins goalie with a French-Canadian accent and a lovable streak of awkward charm. He first appeared as Carla Tortelli's boyfriend and quickly became a fan favorite. Their relationship was odd but endearing, and when the two married, It seemed like Carla, known for her fiery temper and chaotic love life, had finally found something steady. Eddie wasn't flashy, but he fit right in with the show's offbeat energy. Jay Thomas brought Eddie to life with a unique mix of goofy bravado and understated sweetness. He wasn't a main character, but he made his screen time count. Whether showing up in his goalie gear or stumbling through a dinner with Carla's unruly kids, Eddie added a new flavor to the bar's world. His chemistry with Rhea Perlman was believable enough that fans rooted for them. But behind the scenes, trouble was brewing. Trouble that would ultimately lead to one of the strangest character exits in sitcom history. Various reports paint the picture of Jay Thomas making some offhand remarks on air, supposedly calling Rhea Perlman some name for having to kiss her on set. The backbiting was said to have reached the Cheers crew. Perlman was allegedly also contacted, and whatever tension had been there glorified the idea to the writers that Eddie LeBec should vanish from the series altogether. But not just vanish, die. This one is an entirely bizarre sitcom death, with Eddie dead from offstage trauma. He got hit by a Zamboni during an ice show while performing in a penguin costume. Well, it was straight black comedy, true to Cheers' tone. This time, Carla didn't grieve long. The reaction was more comical than heartfelt. Eddie was gone, and the show moved on. No big goodbye, no funeral, no memorial, just a sharp exit for a character who had briefly been part of the bar's extended family. Jay Thomas never returned to Cheers, and his character became a footnote in the annals of the show. But for that couple of seasons, this was Eddie LeBec skating into her life and into the lore of Cheers, a man who found love, lost it, and left the world on a frozen rink, donning a tuxedo penguin suit. Roger Rees, Robin Colcord. Every great sitcom needs a wild card. For Cheers, that character was Robin Colcord. Played with slick precision by Roger Rees, Robin was a suave British billionaire who swept into the bar and into Rebecca Howe's heart, or at least her ambition. Introduced during the later seasons, Robin brought something Cheers hadn't explored much before. As a master manipulator with a charming smile and a diamond-tipped pen, he was both captivating and dangerous. To Rebecca, he wasn't just a romantic interest. He was the golden ticket she'd been chasing since day one. Roger Rees played Robin with just the right mix of aristocratic polish and veiled menace. He was never loud or crude. In fact, he was often the most refined person in the room. But that made him all the more unsettling. As the power-hungry executive, he made Rebecca's character come alive in new ways. Their relationship added a layer of adult complexity and emotional chaos that contrasted beautifully with the bar's usual banter and blue-collar energy. Robin wasn't just another guest star. He became an integral part of Rebecca's story arc. But in the classic style of Cheers, a con artist rarely goes unpunished. Ultimately, it was a case of Robin's being discovered for what he was meant to be. After some slick business maneuvering and some manipulations, he came under investigation for insider trading that ended in his arrest. The storyline lent itself to one of the show's more dramatic subplots, allowing Rebecca to break free from Robin's spell. His exit had nothing to do with show wrestling behind-the-scenes drama or a contract dispute. It had everything to do with a clean ending for a character who had run his dramatic course. Robin came in as an embodiment of wealth and control and went out in handcuffs, a morality lesson on pursuing all the wrong dreams. Roger Rees was never seen after the story arc in Cheers, but the impression he left upon his character was indelible. Robin Colcord forced Rebecca Howe past comic desperation into genuine emotional vulnerability. Beneath the neurotic obsession with money and status, this was a woman looking for love, validation, and something real. Rees brought that sophisticated chaos to the set of Cheers that the audience did not know they would accept. Though he did not ever receive a redemptive send-off, his fall from grace fit right into the world of Cheers, a place where billionaires can be left alone, broke, and out the door. Ready for the biggest twist of all? This is the one that made headlines. Shelley Long, Diane Chambers. When Cheers first premiered in 1982, it was Diane Chambers who walked through the bar's doors and unknowingly set the show's emotional center in motion. Played by Shelley Long, Diane was refined, educated, and hilariously out of place in a Boston bar. With her literary aspirations and snobbish vocabulary, she became the perfect foil and romantic counterweight to Ted Danson's Sam Malone, a laid-back, womanizing ex-ball player. Their chemistry was electric, unpredictable, and central to the show's identity. For 5 seasons, the Sam and Diane dynamic drove ratings, earned critical acclaim, and helped turn Cheers from a ratings flop into one of the most beloved sitcoms in television history. But behind Diane's biting wit and Shelley Long's pitch-perfect performance, there were mounting pressures. By season 5, Long was earning $450,000 per episode and had already won an Emmy in 1983. Yet the work came at a cost. Long battled exhaustion and frequent migraines from the show's intense schedule, 14 to 16-hour days, 5 days a week, 9 months a year. At the same time, tensions simmered behind the scenes. Her methodical approach to character work clashed with Danson's more relaxed style, leading to frequent delays during filming. But tension had begun to build. Long had made up her mind by the time the 5th season finale aired in 1987. Diane would leave Sam at the altar and head off in pursuit of her dream of being a writer, and Shelley would leave Cheers. That episode was viewed by over 24 million, and newspapers around the country carried front-page coverage of her departure. It was more than just a cast change. It was the end of an era. There was shock surrounding the departure of Shelley Long. It allowed for the evolution of the show and showcased how central she was to the production. Long would long be felt within every sideward glance or unsaid joke between the characters remaining after her departure. Her absence created a void that writers cleverly filled with new dynamics, but the show's emotional DNA remained rooted in Diane. Smart, complex women who would never be just sidekicks. In many ways, Diane Chambers has helped to redefine the sitcom heroine. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the cast of Cheers, hit that like button, subscribe for more behind-the-scenes stories, and drop a comment below. Who surprised you the most? Don't forget to click the next video on your screen for more classic TV reveals. See you there!